Hey everyone, how you doing today? My name's Kirsty and on today's video I'm going to be talking through the best reading month that I have had this year with all of these books and more. So I do want to disclaim, I haven't completely read every single book on this list. For Adventurathon, which is my readathon, if you are not aware, we did our second round in September. And I kind of set myself the goal of trying to complete some books that I've started either this year or last year, and I did reasonably okay with that list. Of those 14 books, 5 of them were books that I had previously started, and 2 of them were books that I started last year, so at least I've got those done. I also finished a series in this month and almost finished another one, but I'll be doing that this month. And yeah, I did do a little bit of mood read specifically with the manga because I'm doing a part 2 to my wholesome manga vlog and I started reading the books for those. But yeah, so 14 books. I'm not going to talk about what they're all about. I'm just going to give you a very brief overview of like what I liked, what I didn't like, and then tell you what the ratings were. Starting from the lowest, we have Villain Era by Luna Pierce. This is the second book in this particular series, and the main character has kind of just accepted that she has a darker side, accepted her new life and role, but is now feeling like she's not really being treated as well as she could be, and so sets her sights on a fourth guy to sort of have in her little sort of roster, so to speak, and in her little relationship thing that's going on. Only it's the guy that in the previous book all of the others hated and wanted dead, so it brings in a new unique aspect to the book. I read it for one thing and one thing only, and that was the tease of a specific thing in the first book, and I was like, hey, that'd be interesting to see considering I've never read anything like that before, and it finally happened in the epilogue and I was like, great. But I just felt like the plot wasn't there, the characters just were so bad compared to the first book, and I didn't like how everyone acted in this book. There was only one character that I had any interest in, and by the end I was skim reading just to get to the smutty bits, because I will say I am not typically a smut reader. I don't really enjoy reading a lot of smut, but I will say Luna Pierce writes it really well and in a way that I actually do enjoy, and so that's one of the main reasons why I wanted to continue the series, is because I did like the way she wrote that particular thing. So that one got 2.5 stars and 4.57 on Corepile. Coming in at number 13 was Spy Classroom by Siu Kaname, and this was a cover buy. It's such a cool cover, it drew me in, it sounded really cool, but we get almost no sort of explanation as to why she's a spy. We don't really get a lot about any of the characters. There's a massive cast of characters in this book and they're all kind of just introduced in one page, and then you kind of have to figure it out as it goes. And I don't know. That is dropping and I don't really know why it's dropping, because there is no need for it. And I don't really know why. It's just not really explained, and I felt like the whole story of this was very vague, and I don't know, I just didn't really have as much fun as I was hoping with this, and so I've decided I won't continue this series, and I'm glad that I just picked this up for £1. This one scored 3 stars and was 4.86 on Corepile. Then we have one that may shock a few people, may not shock a few, because it is a My Hero Academia book. Who would have thought I would ever rate a My Hero Academia book so low? But it was actually My Hero Academia Vigilantes, which is a spin-off series. It's set as a prequel and it's like 5 years before the current series. But the thing is, it's not actually written and drawn by Kohei Hirokoshi himself. This is Betancourt and Hideyuki Furuhashi. And I don't know, I just felt really uncomfortable at the fact that this is has a minor in it, wearing almost nothing, and it just feels more perverted than My Hero. Like, My Hero Academia has its perverted moments and has its dodgy costumes and its fan service, but this just felt overboard, overdone. I felt like there weren't really any sort of new, unique characters in here. It was like, hey, look, an All Might fanboy dressing as fanboy. Hello, Midoriya. It didn't feel unique. It didn't feel like anything I hadn't read before. That being said, I am continuing with this series because it has Aizawa in it, and I am a bitch for Aizawa. And I'm also aware that Fat Gum comes into it later on, and he is one of my other all-time favourites in the universe. So I will continue it for those characters. I'm literally watching it fucking drop. So yeah, I will be continuing it reluctantly, but that's because it has some of my favourite characters from the series that will come into it a bit more later. This one got 3.5 stars, so it wasn't horrific. It just had a few issues that I really didn't like, and it just didn't have the same feel as My Hero Academia, and scored 6.21 on Coolpile. Then we have the first of the books that I was finishing from last year. So I was kindly gifted this after winning a giveaway from Kevin from Much Ado About Books' channel, and this was The Darkness Outside Us by Elliot Schreffer. A lot I did like about this was I really liked the atmosphere of it, giving off some of the big reveals. I genuinely didn't see it coming, and it felt like a bit of a thriller, a bit of a horror kind of setting, and I did like how everything linked together. However, I really didn't like the romance in this. It really did feel like that they chose each other because they only had each other, and that had anyone else been there, they probably would have gone with anyone else. And I'm not a fan of I don't mind forced proximity, do not get me wrong. I have no issues with forced proximity, but I do have it when it is literally means that they have no other option than each other. And I just felt it wasn't right the whole way through. It was also a little bit insta-love for my liking. There wasn't a lot of build-up. And the pace was so slow in the first part. It suddenly just dropped into nothing. And that's why I stopped reading at the end of part 1, because I just felt the pace wasn't even there anymore. And it took me over a year to pick it back up. But then I read it in 2 days because part 2 was fantastic. The pace was great. The revelations were coming thick and fast. So yeah, it had some pretty big issues for me personally. You know, lack of pace and that insta romance. But it also did have some really good moments in there that I enjoyed. And yeah, it's definitely, I would like to try more from this author. I'm literally watching that. I apologise. I've had to change the angle of my filming and where I'm filming from because my camera stand just broke midway through filming, so I no longer have the little extendy bit and has now just been thrown to the back of my garden because I just got angry and threw it. So yeah, anyway, Darkness Outside Us got 3.5 stars because, like I said, it wasn't horrifically awful, but it also did have moments that could have been much better, and got 6.29 on Coolpile. Next up was the second of my wholesome manga type things, and this was The Summer You Were There. This is a sapphic book that is one of my first voyage into sapphic manga. And it was kind of cute, but I got a very ominous feeling, and I feel like it's not going to be as cute and wholesome as I was expecting it to. And I'm just getting a very bad feeling about the fate of these characters, specifically one of them, and if my instincts are correct, it's not going to be cute and fluffy. But it was an okay start to the series. It kind of felt a bit rushed, as tends to do when it's a romance. They tend to rush straight into the romance quite a lot. And but it had some good motives, the characters were okay, and there was enough emotional pull there that I do want to at least give the second one a try. But I have definitely got worries about how my heart is going to end up by the end of this. This one got 3.5 and 6.71 on Coolpile. Next up was the first book in the villain series, which was Untamed Vixen by Luna Pierce, and honestly, I feel like it didn't even need the sequel. This one was good. The characters were pretty cool. Magnus was just amazing. Didn't like the female character very much. I found her to be a bit arrogant and obnoxious for my tastes. But like I said, the smut and the smutty scenes were fantastic. The relationships were great. I liked the side characters, they all seemed to have a point and a purpose, and I did have a really good time with this. So I did give it 4 stars. And this one had a lot more actual plot to it than the sequel did. So I gave this one 4 stars, and it was bang on 4 stars at a solid 7 on Corpile. Then we had my second book that was from last year, which was The Princess and the Fangirl by Ashley Poston. Now, this I think would have been rated a lot higher if I'd have read it 3-4 years ago, but ever since the whole, like, controversy with a certain author came in, and unfortunately for a series, this series is full of pop culture references and like sci-fi nerdy geeky references. That doesn't bother me. But there is one in particular that it's for every sort of one Star Wars reference, there's 3 of the other reference. And at one point, it just felt like every other page there was 2 to 3 references at every turn. It's like, oh, he's such a Huffle snuff, and like, oh no, I'm a Slytherin, and all of this. And it was just constant. And I was just like, could we have enough? Like, there are other fandoms out there than just this. I just do feel like the pop culture references do go a little bit too overboard sometimes. But when it dials back and focuses on the convention and the magic and the relationships, it is exquisitely written. Both of the books that I have read in this series so far, but at the last like 50 pages, are so chaotic and glorious, and are everything that I have experienced at a convention. And there is something magical about the things that she writes. I just wish that there was slight, and this is me coming as a nerd and a geek who uses these kind of references in everyday life all the time. Even I feel like they're a little bit overdone in this series. But yeah, I am looking forward to the third one. And I did enjoy this one. I just didn't enjoy it as much as the first one because I really loved Imogen, but I did not like Jess. And I still don't like Jess. And I just couldn't get behind her, even though I really wanted to. So yeah, and the third one focuses on a guy that I cannot stand, so we shall see how that goes. But this one did get 4 stars and was 7.29. Then we had an absolute curveball. I was expecting that this was going to be my least favourite book of the year, and that I was going to be really uncomfortable and disgusted by it. And it ended up being super cute, super wholesome, and I was really impressed by the representation. And that is Sweat and Soap by Kintetsu Yamada. I will put it out there, I am a person who suffers from excessive sweating. It's a condition that runs in my entire family. It's just a condition I've always dealt with. So as a result, I am used to doing things like when I used to teach, I used to take spare clothes into school with me, and at lunch I would go and change clothes just to freshen up. And it shows her in the first couple of pages, the main character, it shows her going into the bathroom and doing things like spraying this like special spray in her shoes to stop the sweating. And I'm like, I have been there, I have done that. And just some of the ways that they were talking about, I felt seen, and I loved that they didn't represent it as like oh, that's so gross, she's disgusting. And her co-workers weren't like, oh, she's gross, don't talk to her. It was just one of those accepted things. It was kind of creepy with the way he is with her and the way he's obsessed with her smell and is trying to replicate a specific smell that happens when she sweats at certain times. And it was kind of weird where by the end she was like, oh, I'm getting excited and I'm disappointed that you weren't sniffing me through the day. And it was like, that was a bit creepy, because it kind of was like, oh, he can't go an entire day without obsessing over her scent. That was kind of creeping me out. But again, it wasn't even the sweat itself, it was him. And it was like, oh, okay. So I ended up people were saying to me that this is actually oddly and weirdly wholesome, and I can see it, and I really want to continue the series because I think it's going to be really cute. And yeah, I just was absolutely floored by how shocked and how much enjoyment I got from this. This one got 4 stars and was 7.86. Then we have the actual My Hero Academia series, and we have volume 19, which is the start of the school festival arc, so it's all their prep and choosing what they're going to do, and it's post Shie Hisaikai, so they've got Eri in it a few times, and I'm not saying much because I don't want to spoil things, but this one, it brings in a couple of criminals that they're not my favourite. I know some people absolutely adore them. I personally don't really like them very much. I kind of feel like the series could have done without it. But they did also help Deku work out some things with his powers, and they did cause, they were needed for that particular storyline. But I just loved the friendships in this. I loved the atmosphere, and I loved watching all the build up and seeing the anime and comparing it with the manga. I just have been having a great time with it. And yeah, it's just a really solid read for me. 4 stars again, and 7.86. Then we're coming to the 4.5 stars. So these were almost perfect, but not quite. The first one of these is The Backup Plan by Jill Shalvis. I started this and nearly finished it in January, and then for some reason I just stopped. So I came back to it and got it finished. I love stories where you've got people who knew each other as friends, they've drawn apart, and then now they've come back together and they're realizing that they need to face the things that happened back then, but also new emotions and feelings are developing now. I love those kind of stories. And it was a story that dealt with grief, it dealt with secrets, it dealt with people afraid to have feelings and being unable to move on from one significant thing that happened in their life and trying to face it. And it was just so beautiful. I loved all 3 of the characters. The atmosphere in this was great. It made me giggle a lot. I related so much to Alice with the whole eating her feelings, and she was very much, her response to things is to kind of, someone compliments her, she sort of turns it into a joke and laughs it off rather than accept the compliment and be like, thank you. And when she finally starts to grow feelings, she's like, I need to escape and run away because I don't want to get hurt. And I have had that a fair few times in the past myself. So I kind of related really strongly to her. I gave this one 4.5 stars, 8.14. And then the final of the 4.5 stars, and this one came in at number 4 overall for the month, and is the series that I finished, and that was Night of the Dragon by Julie Kagawa. I only had a couple of hours left on the audiobook, so I just sat one evening, listened to the first half, started to cry, decided to take a break, and then finished the rest of it a few days later and cried again. It was fantastic. It was such a solid series, and the ending had a couple of things where it was like, when the big bad overall end goal came out and it was resolved, it was super quick. I feel like that could have been revealed a lot earlier and we could have had way more development with that character, because I wanted to know so much more about his motives and goals, because it did kind of feel like, oh, he's just the big bad because he's just the big bad, But very, very early on in this book, that Julie Kagawa is not afraid to rip your heart out. And there were a couple of things that happened that I was like, yeah, I kind of expected that X, Y, Z. And then at the end, I was like, I didn't expect that to be how that ended, and I was in bits, and it was just such a raw and powerful ending, and it was just such a beautifully well written story, and the audiobook narrators were exquisite. The only reason this one wasn't a 5.5 stars and isn't going up there with like all-time favourite series is purely because it really did feel like we didn't get a lot of time to really see certain things develop. Some parts of the plot really were underdeveloped. Some of the characters needed way more page time for it to have really made that impact for me. But either way, it was a fantastic series. It was a very solid series, and I think across the whole series it's like 4.5. Then we're in our top 3. Coming in at number 3 is Cat Gamer. This was super cute, super wholesome. Anything with a cat in is almost guaranteed to get 5 stars from me anyway. But add in a woman who is a gamer and has no idea how to look after an animal, so decides to apply video game logic to how she raises it, and I am sold and I am in love. And I absolutely adored this, and I cannot wait to continue the series. The only kind of flaw I would say, and even then it's only very, very minor, is just that at the minute it is literally just about her learning how to look after a cat, and I kind of hope that in future volumes there's going to be a bit more actual plot. But it was so good. I had such a fun time. I loved all of the gaming references because as a gamer I know some of the struggles. I also loved some of the things where she was realizing how to look after the cat and some of the things the cat was doing, and I was like, yep, as a cat owner I am fully aware of all these things. And I just had such a fun, cute, wholesome time, and it got 5 stars and bang on 9. Coming in at number 2, also got a solid 9 and a bang on 5 stars on Core Pile, and that is Bloodmarked by Tracy Dion. The tabs alone should tell you that I had a lot of thoughts and a lot of enjoyment from this book. And I was screaming for joy, screaming for frustration, screaming for anger, and the only thing I didn't like is book 2 ended identically to book 1, just with a different character. So I'm now kind of hoping that book 3 isn't going to do basically the same format as book 2, because it's fine for one book, but when they do it back to back, it's a bit like, I'm bored now, can something else be different? So that's the only sort of major thing that I had, is I feel like it's setting it up so that book 3 is going to have sort of like similar to what happened in book 2, except it's just different characters. And I just don't really like that. But honest to God, again, the lore, it was less info dumpy this time round. And I really appreciated that, because the first time I read Legendborn, I felt it was just way too much info being thrown at us. This time around, the lore was much more cleverly woven into the book. New characters were brought in that I absolutely have already fallen in love with. I didn't see a twist that happened towards the end. Again, similarly with Legendborn, I did not see it coming, and when it did, I was like, ho! But I just loved so much about this book. I really liked that we got Alice in it a lot more. I really loved the development with different relationships within this. There was a lot more emotion in this. And if book 3 goes the same way book 1 and 2 are, I will put it down as one of the best YA trilogies and YA fantasies in history. Because right now, I can't really think of any that I've read that are better. It is incredible, and I definitely recommend. I'm still uncomfortable about the fact that Brianna is only 16. That still gives me kind of the heebie-jeebies when it's like, you know, she's being chased up by 2 18-year-olds and they're college students, and she's just like, still uncomfortable with that age thing. I really wish that they'd started the series with her about 17, 18. That's just a me thing. But yeah, 5 stars, 9 on the core pile scale. And then coming in our number 1 slot is My Hero Academia Volume 17. It is the finale of the Shie Hisaikai raid. It's the final showdown. It's there's one more after this one that is on par with this one, because I don't own volume 18 yet. I only own 17 and 19. But the episodes in the anime make me sob and cry and break, and this also had me sobbing and crying, but for different reasons, weirdly. In the anime, it's the soundtrack, and at the moment that they do like the rescuing and at the penultimate moment, there's a specific song that plays that absolutely has me sobbing, and the emotions and the screaming and the voice acting is just so incredible. And it's more Midoriya and Eri. That's where I get emotional. In the actual manga, it was Mirio, Lemillion. I have gone from, in the anime, yeah, I like him, he's fine, he's great, and I think he's awesome. But this, he had me tearing up, and Night Eye in this, I just felt had more depth than he has in the anime. And I was just like, okay, I actually ended up feeling more emotional reading the manga than I have done watching the anime. But yeah, this is absolutely my favourite arc in the manga and in the series so far. And yeah, I don't feel, even though we're now coming into the final of the series and we are hitting that point where it's going to all come to the ultimate end, and you obviously know there's going to be sacrifices and there's going to be death and there's going to be pain, I just don't feel it's going to hit me as hard as this did. You watch, I'm going to insert a clip from like 6 months' time when it ends and I'm just going to be dead. But, it was exquisite. 5 stars, perfection. 9 point. It wasn't the highest that I've rated a book this year, but it is one of the higher ones at 9.14. And you know me, I will always recommend this series. So that is it. That was the 14 books that I got through. I still can't quite get over the fact that I managed to complete 14 books. I know a lot of them were manga, but at the same time, it all counts. And I'm grateful for manga, because the other thing that I've done this month is I've hit my Goodreads reading goal. So I am now on 76 out of 75 books read for the year. And I'm not going to change my goal. I could up it to 100, because with the amount of manga I'm reading, I probably will hit 100 for the first time ever. But I'm not going to actually do that. Next year I've decided that I'm going to set manga as its own goal, because I've realised this year how much I have missed it and how much I really do love it. Because if it wasn't for manga this year, I'd still only be on like 32, 33 novels and I would be having a bit of a panic right now. But thanks to manga, I've now hit my Goodreads goal and I'm very happy with that. So yeah. How did your reading month go for September? I hope it went really well, and even if it didn't, I hope you still had a good month, whatever you did or didn't get around to reading. I'm really overjoyed at how much I got read. I managed to complete a bunch of books, I managed to complete a series, I managed to hit my Goodreads reading goal for the year. So I was thrilled with how it ended. But yeah, let me know in the comments what was your favourite book for the month. That's me done. I hope you're all good. I hope you're staying safe. And until next time, bye.